Welcome Informatics 2B students to our first session. So we'll be going through practical 4. So in this practical, right, what you're required to do is you need to create a master page. You need to be able to dynamically populate products. You need to be able to dynamically populate the about product page. And then you also need to be able to manipulate navigation. So basically, what are the set of options that are there based on what type of a user you are, or what role you are, or what role you have, right? You could either be a customer or a manager. So, okay, so I'm gonna open my template, right? I'll make use of a template. So with the template, right, this is the template that I will be using. So as you can see, there's our template. So you might ask yourself, why do we need things like master pages and things like that? We'll get to that. So there's our homepage, right? That's a set of things that we have. And then if I go to the menu, I'm going to see my products. And then I can filter here and say burger, and then it shows me only burgers. And then I can filter here and say pizza and shows me only pizzas. And then I can click on pasta and then it shows me only pasta. And then I can click on fries and then it shows me only fries. So, and then I go back to all and then it shows me all of the products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these pages and look at what's common, right? And then there's the about page. So when I look at this, if when I look at this, I can tell that what's common is it's only the top, which is the head or the header, and the footer. So the header and the footer being means that at the bottom of the page, and then the header means at the top of the page. Think of it in terms of a person, right? Your head is at the top, right? And then your feet or your foot is at the bottom, right? So think of it like that. And then the body of the person is like this middle part, right? From your neck going downwards, right? That this middle section would be your body. And then we're gonna have book table. So yeah, this white space, right, where there's white here, right, this would be the body, the middle part. We would call that the body. Then the top here will be the header. Then this would be the footer. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I do not want here, like this. You see this order online button, I'm not gonna need that. Even the search button, I'm not gonna need that. And then with this one, it's for booking, right? For this one, I'll make it redirect to register, right? Or no, I'll make it redirect to login. If you're already a user, then obviously there's no need for us to ask the user to if you're not a user yet, then there's no need for us to ask the user to log in. There should be something like, are you a new user? Then register here, and then it redirects to the register page. Okay, this template just doesn't have a lot of things that I need. Like here at the bottom, there's something that's missing. But then it's fine. I'll use what we call an anchor tag, right? I'll use that to redirect. So menu, there's everything, right? So now the first step, what is a master page? The master page is basically the page whereby you put all the common code in all of the HTML files. This is like the somewhat not straightforward approach or somewhat difficult step. So that's what you're going to start with, right? You're going to need to start from the top and look at the common things and choose only things that are common. So while I'm going to be looking at this, right, let me just open Visual Studio and then have it running on the background. Okay, so okay, let me minimize that and then create a new project. And then I'm gonna start with the web application, right, with the website. the service application will get there once you're done converting this HTML to ASP.NET. Then I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to name it P04 website, right? So this is the practical 4 website. So you need to be able to tell which one is the website and which one is the service. So that's why we separate it. So I think desktop should be fine, right? Yeah, let me just put it on desktop so that it's easier for me to navigate. And then make sure it's we want an empty template. We don't want to default things because we have to delete all those things. So I want an empty one, and make sure you unselect this configure for HTTPS. HTTPS, since you're doing computer science you should be aware of it. It's a hypertext transfer protocol. That S means that it's secure. That means it uses the secure one, right? That's not what we want to use right now, because if you choose that, that means your applications will not run at UJ, because remember UJ, there's the whole firewall thingy. So it's gonna block it from running. So let's just unselect that and just say we don't need any security inside of our application. It's just gonna be a normal application, no security whatsoever, which is not a good thing to do. But then since it's just a practical, we're just gonna unselect that, and then click create, and then it's gonna create the page, right? So the reason why I use VS Code, right, is so that when I copy, it's gonna be easier to copy. I'll show you how easy it is to copy the code from Visual Studio Code. So, okay, so there it is. And then I don't want the overview, so I'm just going to delete that. And then click on Solution Explorer, and then right click on my project name, right? I've called it Practical 4 underscore website. Right click and then click Add. Come on, and then I'm gonna add a master page, just that it's not showing here. So I'm just gonna say add a new item, and then make sure you select web, because we're dealing with the website. I don't want an HTML page. I don't want this. I want a master page, right? So I'm gonna scroll down and look for master page. So there it is, web forms master page. So this master page, right there it is. We're gonna need that master page to put in the common code, so that every time we add a new page, we don't start from scratch, right? That's how it works. What example can I use? Let me use a simple example. We just put in common code, right? So if you remember in your math class, right, you had something like this: 2x, let's say minus x, and then you factor out x. Why do you factor out x? Because x is common in both, right? So just imagine this is page one. Let me say this is the home page. This is the register page. Then plus 3x. This would be maybe about page, something like that. So all of these pages, right? We're gonna choose the common thing. In this case, would be x, and then that common thing that we choose is going to be stored inside the master page, so that we don't start from scratch. So I'm gonna give my master page a name. Um, I'm gonna call it common pages. Common. I can call it anything. Let me just say main. Let me just call it main dot master. And then don't choose the nested one, right? Remember, there's two options. Don't make that mistake of choosing the nested. New item. So don't choose this. Don't choose the nested. The nested, it means that you're gonna think of, yeah, another way of viewing as master page. Think of it as like your base class. It's like that base class where you put in all the common things. And then every HTML page you create, we're gonna view that as like the descendant. or the child, right? And then the nested one, it's like you are saying there's going to be multiple master pages, right? Basically multiple, should I say multiple inheritance? I don't think it's multiple inheritance, but then there's going to be basically multiple base classes. That's the second one. It means you want multiple base classes. That's not what you want. You only want one base class. That's it. So that's why we chose the first one. Don't choose the nested. And then this is where our common code will go. Just pay attention that every ASP.NET application, it requires a maximum of one form. So in your HTML, if you happen to see a form, you need to remove that, replace it with a div, right? You need to change that form to, let's say this right here was supposed to be a div. I just delete that and just make it a div. But then since this is my master page, it should have a form. And then by default, it adds all these extra divs, whatever. I don't need them, so I'm gonna remove that. So remember that we have common code, right? So what happens in the page has its own unique code. We create what is called a content placeholder. It's just a placeholder to say that this is a placeholder for content that's going to be placed by my child classes, right? Or my child pages, which is the descendants, which is the HTML pages, right? If that page has its own unique extra thing, right? Its own unique thing, then you can put that extra information there. So I'm gonna go back to my HTML pages, right? And then for all of them, I'm gonna scroll to the top, right? Because I wanna see what's common in all of them. Lucky enough, this HTML page that I have, this template that I have, it's actually very easy to see and detect which ones are common because especially for the head, right? For the head tag, it has the same thing in all of the pages. If you notice this, you need to be very careful when you're choosing. It needs to match exactly like this in all the other pages. If I check this right, you can pause to double check, but then I've checked it and it matches, right? Everything matches, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to choose any of the pages to copy that common code. Remember, we're still here on the head tag, right? I'm just only still copying the meta tags. And then remember, it's in the head. Don't put it in the body. Don't make that mistake. It's in the head, but then it's at the top, right? If you notice where it was, it's at the top. So I'm going to put it there at the top. So it's at the top, and then Control S to save. Pay attention to something, right? Look on your left-hand side. If it's yellow like this, it means you haven't saved the changes. You can press here at the top and say save all, or Control S, or Control Shift S. It's up to you in whatever way you want to save it. I made a mistake on purpose here. We'll see what happens when you make that mistake. There's something that's missing. You already, even though we haven't started changing many things. So title, right? We won't select title because the title is unique for each page. So I'm gonna leave that. I won't copy it. Then now we need to look at our links, right? The links that are there and see if they match. Lucky enough, yeah, I just happen to be lucky. You're not always gonna be lucky. Sometimes maybe this line is only inside index.html. So you have to create a content placeholder there to say there should be something, other pages have something that's unique in them. So it should go there if that page has something that's unique. So if I go back here, it's already there. You see, there's the content placeholder. It just says this is a placeholder for some content that will be expected if any of my descendants or the pages that inherit from this master page, if any of them have their own unique things, they can add it, or their own unique content, they can add that unique content. So like I said, I've checked everything is the same when it comes to the links also. They are all the same. You can double check if you want. There it is. They're all the same. So I'm just gonna copy all of it like this. Copy, go down here, and then remember, we're just gonna put it just before the content placeholder, after title though. It doesn't have to be after title, it can be before, but then just make sure it's before content placeholder. And then you see sometimes your HTML won't be aligned. To align it, you're just gonna type this. This is how you align, right? To align, right? The first step is you select everything in the file, but via a shortcut. What is the shortcut? Is Control plus A. That's how I select everything. And then to align everything, alignment, right? To align everything, you're gonna say Control plus K, and then followed by, immediately after typing Control plus K, you're gonna type Control plus F again. So you need to type this quickly and then also type this quickly to auto align, and you must type both. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna press Control A to select everything. You see everything is selected, and then I'm gonna press Control K, Control F. And if you see now, my HTML is auto aligned. So we have our HTML. So there's the content placeholder. If any of the child or the children, the child classes, right, the descendants, if any of the descendants, especially for the head tag, right, for the head tag, that's why it's even given the ID head, so that when the child and the children inherit from this master page, they know which ID to use when you want to put the content, and where will the content go. You see it's named ID, it means that the head, it means that the content will go in the head. That's why when we create our own content placeholders like this, we need to give them IDs that make sense. Then now when it comes to the body, make sure you put everything within the form. So I'm gonna go here. If you don't put the form, it won't run. So basically we're done with the head tag. So now when it comes to here, the body, right? Before you continue, notice something here. You have a keen eye for details. So you look at the body, it's using the class sub page. So I need to also make sure that matches here. So my body here, it's using class sub page. It's quite a process to convert. You need to really understand what you're doing. So after the body, so we're gonna have a hero area. So let me check here, scroll down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it into sections so that I make it simpler for me to view. So you see there's the comment. It says the head section starts here. So I'm going to minimize there. Then I'll know this is the head section. And then I'm going to scroll down here. This is the about section, right? And then I go to menu. I do the same thing. Where I see a comment where it says this is where something starts, I minimize that. And then there's the foot section. I minimize that. Okay, I also minimize the footer, right? I'm gonna go this side, also minimize the footer. And then I'm gonna go to my book.html, minimize the sections, minimize that section, book section, and then footer. And then last but not least, HTML, index.html. Then you're gonna have this. And then you're gonna have that section. Yeah, so the home page has a lot of sections. It actually includes all of the sections, yeah, all of the other pages content. That's what remember the index.html, it's actually what we call the home page or the landing page. So let's start with one div at a time, right? Let's start with this div, right? Let's start with the home page. Look at the home page. This div it's part of this class hero area, right? It has this B box, header sections, and then slider section. Let's see if it matches exactly the same as the other one. We have BG box, we have header section, but then you see we don't have slider section here. So slider section is only inside index.html. So we need to put a placeholder here. So we need to put a placeholder to say whatever the class has that's unique, it should be placed there. And we give it an ID so that we know, because we're going to have multiple content placeholders. So we need to use proper IDs to remember which, if I put content for this content placeholder, which content placeholder is it and what is it for? What code am I going to put there? So we're going to need to put a placeholder there. And then if I check here, you see same thing again. I have BG box head div, and then I have the header section header, which is the same. And then I have BG box, I have header section, but then you see I don't have slider. So for this first div here, the things that are common is these two divs that are inside. But then we still need to copy the whole div at the end of the day. But then we must not forget to put a placeholder here, because one of the pages has its own unique things. So I'm gonna copy that div, right? Copy it, go to my HTML, to my master page, put it there. And remember what I said, any form you see, you need to convert that to a div. You see it's already giving me a warning. Let me see if the warning is clear. Yeah. Element form must be nested within element form. Yeah, it's just giving errors that make sense. So I'm gonna change that to a div. Let me see if I have another form. Okay, I don't have. So remember what we were talking about, right? This was the header section, right? And then this was the BG box. So before I do that, let me auto align everything. So everything is auto aligned. So remember what I said here, we're gonna need a placeholder here, because home page or index.html, it has its own unique content that's supposed to go there. So how do I create that? It's simple. I just put a less than symbol, and then I type ASP, and then a colon, and then what element do I need inside ASP? I need a content placeholder like this, right? And then I give it an ID. So what ID will that be? Remember, this is for our slider section. And then run at server, right? Before we continue, this run at server, it just means it will allow me to run this on the server side, right? Hence run at. If you read the run at keyword, right? So run at is two words, run at server. So basically run it at the server side. So server side is basically, remember Informatics 2B, the form, where you can see the design of your form, right? Would call that the client. Where you wrote the code behind the scenes for each button, would call that the server side. So it means basically we want this thing to be able to be run on the server side, right? Where we write the code. Remember this, let me just say where we write our C# code. Yeah. It's literally similar to ASP dot what is C sharp, what is not C sharp, what is this? Visual Basic. It's similar to Visual Basic. So this run it server is very important. You will see what happens if you don't put it. So now we have a content placeholder for the slider section, meaning that that's where the unique code that page has will go. Then now let's look at the middle part, right? Remember what I said, the middle part is always unique for each page. So I don't actually have to look at the middle part. All I have to take now is the footer, which represents the bottom, right? They took this analogy from the human body, right? Foot or your feet, they are on the ground, right? They are at the bottom. So that's what this footer means. It's for the code at the bottom. And then about okay, let me show you index.html before you forget. You see, there's that section that I was talking about, right? It's called slider section. That's why I gave you that ID, so that I remember, oh, this is the slider information. And then the middle part, right? Remember the middle part. In anything and everything before footer, that's what we call the middle section, right? Which is the body of the page, right? So this whole thing that I've selected, that's everything for my home page. But then if you check, it's unique in every single page. You see, if I now I can minimize this now because I'm done with this div, right? So now I can minimize that. So you see here, it only has one section, but then you see the footer is there for all the pages. So the footer is important. I'm gonna copy that footer. You see why I love VS Code, right? You see, I minimized all of this code, all of this. I just minimized it like this on the side. But when I select like this, it actually selects the whole thing. So it makes it easy for me to translate my HTML to ASP because I don't have to copy and I don't have to start from the top, copy going downwards. It's gonna take a lot of time. So after this div, right? Remember this is the first div, which is the hero area div, right? After that div, we're expecting to have the footer, right? But then the footer, remember, is at the bottom, is here, right? So I'm gonna put it after the that content placeholder. And then you must always auto align to make it easy. And then, like I said, if you see anything that's a form that's not supposed to be there, you remember your ASP.NET must have one form. And then I'm gonna minimize that. So I now know this is my section. So basically this middle part will be all the other sections, which is the main body of each page. That's what that will be, that middle part. Since I'm done with the top div, no, I minimized the wrong thing. The top div, the hero area div, I'm just gonna minimize that. So now we have this middle section, but then remember after the footer, we have our ZJS. I think we have, that's our scripts, right? We have our scripts. Like I said, for me, I was very like here. Why do I say so? Because it happens to be the same case for all the pages that they have the same JavaScript. If you check that JavaScript and then you compare it to this, you see that we have jQuery, pop.js, bootstrap.js, owl slider, isotope.js, nice select, custom.js, Google Map. If you check in all the other pages, you have the exact same thing. jQuery, pop, bootstrap, isotope, blah, blah, blah. You see, it's exactly the same for all the pages. That's why I'm saying I got lucky. Sometimes you're not gonna get lucky. Maybe the Google Map script is only it was only inside of the index.html. So therefore I must create a placeholder for that. So I'll just copy every script here since it's all the same in all the pages. Remember, that's the main purpose of our master page. So I'm gonna put it, remember it goes after the footer. So there it is, select everything, Control K, Control F. Then everything has been aligned. And then for this middle part, right, just before the section, right, you can see it's just before the footer section, but then after the hero area div, we have some content here. So that's why I put a placeholder there. Because like I said, the middle body for each page is unique. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one has 5 sections for the middle body. But then if you check the other ones, okay, since I'm done with this div, I can minimize it like this so that you can see it properly. So if I go back here, if you look at this one, right, it only has this middle section, which is one section. So you see the middle part is unique in all of them. It's always the case that the middle part is unique for all of them. So there's the food section. So that's pretty much what we need for our master page. We're actually done with the master page, but then I need to give my label a proper name. So here I'll just say, I can call it the middle part of the page, or I'll just say these are my sections, right? Why am I calling them sections? Because if you check on this page, I have the food section. Here I have the about section. Here I have the book section. And then here I have all these other sections. You see, we have sections. So that's why I'm going to call that content placeholder sections. I'm going to give it that ID sections. And then I'm going to go here and then create a new page, right? Let's create so what the next thing about the content placeholders, right? If the page doesn't define anything that's unique, you just leave it empty. You see that if you run the page, it will only display the common things, or basically only the things that are inside the master page. Because remember, all the other pages will inherit from the master page. So I'm gonna right click and say new item and then click on web. And then I want a web form. We're gonna create what we call a web form. But then we want a web form with a master page or with a parent. A master page is basically a base class or a parent class. So with the parent, we're gonna call it home.aspx. Then I'm gonna click add, and then you're gonna see here, this is gonna show you a list of master pages, right? Or base classes. I want to inherit from the one, and there's only one so far, so I'm just gonna select that one, main.master. It needs to end with .master. And then I click OK. So there's my page. And then I could also just give it a title there. This represents my home page, just to give it a title. So if I leave this, so you see that side we had content placeholder. It was a placeholder for a content, and this was this ID. When you create the actual web pages, we're now providing ASP.NET content, the actual content for the corresponding content placeholder IDs. As you can see, content placeholder ID. So this for the head ID. That means the code that I put in here, right? The code that I put in here is gonna be placed. It's gonna basically what it does, right? It's gonna delete this, right? Delete everything and then put the code that you're supposed the content that goes there. That's what it does. And then undo this. So for now, I'm not gonna add any code. You see that the only thing that you should see is the head and the footer, right? Which is just the top and the bottom. There won't be any body, right? Or any middle part. So it's gonna look weird. Yeah. Remember this error, you might face this error to be like, wait, why is my HTML not looking the same as the template? Well, because you forgot to import the files, the CSS that has the styling. So you need to select all these folders, right click, and then click copy, right? And then go back to Visual Studio. That's the error I was talking about, that I made it on purpose. And then right click here and then click paste. Or you can just press copy it with Control V and then paste with copy it with Control C and then paste with Control V. So here I'm just right clicking so that for those who prefer that method, and then paste, you should see the folders in here. So there they are. Even the JavaScript, the scripts are also there. Everything is fine. Now my pages should have the styling. But then for some weird reason, it sometimes gives you this error. I don't know why this error happens. So the way to fix that error, right? You need to go to your Solution Explorer and then click on the project, right click on your project name, and then go to Properties. And then basically we're gonna set what's the starting page. So when I click Run, what's the page it's gonna start running from. Then you click on Web on the left panel, and then you click on specific page. Which specific page do you want to automatically load, right? You see right now it automatically loads this, which becomes a problem. We want it to automatically load home.aspx, right? Our home page. So you're gonna click on these three dots here, click on that, and then select the asp.aspx page here, or the page that you want to start from, and then click OK. And then you're gonna notice something here on the left panel. There's gonna be an asterisk, right? There's the star, that Watashiwa star there. It's gonna be there, so it means that you didn't save. So these changes that you made, this page that you've set, the starting page, you haven't actually set it because you haven't saved. So you need to press Control S, or just click at the top there and press either one of those buttons, but I prefer the second one. The second one, it means save all. it means all of my pages, all of them, any changes that I've made in all of the pages, save those changes. That's what this second button does. The first one just means save the page that or the thing that I currently have open. I currently have open this, right, the properties. So I'm just gonna click on that and save. So you see that star disappears here. It means that the changes have been made. And then now when I run it again, I'm gonna click here. By default, should redirect me to home page, as you can see. Because I don't know, for some weird reason, when you add what is this? When you add the CSS, right, it just changes the URL to this now. And that's not a page. You're just connecting to localhost on that port number, 60,750. So you also need to specify the page. So there's our, as I said, you see there's no middle part, right? We do not have the body or the middle part of the home page. So we need to add that, which is what, remember, we also have things like the slider section. So let's add one by one so that you can see. So I'm gonna go here. We had the slider section, so I'm gonna expand this, and then there's the slider section that was unique only in the index.html. Then I put it there. If you see form, change it to div. Trust me, that's gonna save you from a lot of errors. And then select everything, Control K, Control F to auto align. Done. Then now when I run, I'm gonna see the slider section, right? I still don't want to see the body because I still haven't added the sections, which is the body, the main body of the homepage. So I'll just see this slider section right at the top. And then you see, so we don't have anything here, right? It's missing. We only have the bottom, which is this footer, and the top, which is the head, right? And the slider section. So we need to add the sections, right? Or the main body. You could have called the section main body, doesn't matter. Whatever you name it, just make sure you remember and you know what it means. So for the main body, right? Remember this div here was common in all of them. So it's in the master page. I don't have to edit again here. If you edit again, you see that your pages will look funny. So I need to copy starting from offer just to before the footer, because remember starting from the footer going downwards is common in all the pages. So this is the sections that I was talking about that I need. Then I'm gonna right click and then copy or just Control C. And then I'm gonna come here, right click, paste or Control V. That's up to you how you wanna copy and paste. And then auto align, and then done. And then I'm gonna minimize that. So there's many sections here. You see, every form must be changed to a div so that you avoid a lot of errors. It might not even add to the database just because of that form. Yeah, I think it won't add. Yeah. Sometimes it might get lucky, it might add, but then don't depend on luck. If you see form here, it should only be in the master page form. That's where it should be. You shouldn't have form here. Come on. Why is it doing that? Yeah, I don't see form here. So this is the foot section. And then this is the what? The offer section. Minimize that. So I have pretty much all the sections that I need. And make sure you put it underneath the right ID. If you put it in the wrong ID, it's gonna put it in the wrong places. So there we go. You see, there's our body, the middle part, right? There it is. Everything is fine. But then remember, we need to dynamically populate these products. They need to be dynamically populated, meaning that they need to be dynamically. So dynamical just means that instead of repeating the code over and over, because if you look at these things, right, aren't they the same? Like the styling and the shape, everything is the same, right? So if you look at the code, it was repeated over and over multiple times. And we're gonna need to change these prices, right? So I need to change that before I forget. And this button, I need to remove it because when I look at it, I'm not going to view more, right? I'm not going to view any more products. So I'm going to right click and say inspect because I want to know which div it is that I need to remove with that button. So it's called BTN. Yeah, it's called BTN box, right? That's the div, you see. And it's under which section? The food section. Remember, this is my home page. Under the food section, towards the bottom, the last div basically is that. So I'm gonna go back here and look for food section. There's the food, expand the food section. And like I said, it's towards the end. So I'm gonna minimize this, all these divs until I see the end. There's the end. So there's the div that with the button, right? The view more button. I don't need that, so I'm gonna delete. Control S to save or click at the top there to save. Don't forget to save every time you change something. As long as it's yellow on the left side, you need to change. So there it is. I'm gonna scroll down and you see that the button is no longer there because I don't need it. I honestly don't. Then there's your card. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, with the card I'll see if I'll get time to do that because this thing is a lot. So I also do not want this order. I don't know why I do not want this, right? What happens when someone presses this button? Okay, okay, so far it does work, right? But then what if the button didn't work? If it didn't work, just remove it. As long because you're not gonna use it, you don't care about that. So in this case, just for the sake of allowing my homepage to be beautiful, I'm gonna leave it as it is. So we are done with the homepage. Remember, we don't have menu. Remember, it's redirected to menu.html. So we need to fix all those things. So let me go to my master page and make those changes, right? So where is it? Is it here? Oh, it's the header section, it's here. So with the header section, right, we're gonna have what we call the list items, right? This is an UL, this is an unordered list with list items, right? Unordered, it means that it's not gonna have a number next to it, like 1, 2, 3. It won't have that. So we don't need that. So when I click on home, right, you see what's going on. It's still redirected to index.html, but does it exist? Nope, it doesn't exist. So I need to now redirect to home.aspx. And then for my menu, I will create the pages, right? I'm gonna create a menu page called menu.aspx. And then for the about, I'm gonna create a page called about.aspx. And then for the book table, I'm gonna create, do I really need to book? It's fine. I'll create it book.aspx. So obviously the pages are still not there. So it's gonna crash if I click things that don't exist. The home page does exist. So if I click on home, it will be there. So if I click on home here, you see, it redirects to the home page. But if I click things like menu, it's gonna crash. So when it crashes like this, right, whenever you see this error cannot be found, you see, it tells you what you are requesting. You are requesting a menu.aspx. That's the requested page, right? It could not be found. That page could not be found that you're looking for. So it means you need to define that page. So let's start with the menu, right? After the home page, let's go to menu. So once you have added a new item, that web form with the master page or with the base class, it should appear here at the bottom. So there it is, web form with the master page. I don't have to select new item again. I can just select it from this list. It's gonna add it to this list because it sees that I'm using it quite often. So I'm gonna call it menu. You can say menu.aspx, but then you don't have to. You can just leave it as menu and then click OK. And then choose the base class or the parent class, the master page, and then click OK. And then there we go. Remember that for the other pages, they didn't have any extra things like a slider section or the head, anything that's extra on the head, it didn't have. So that's the beauty of redefining a master page. You see, I don't have to write the HTML from scratch. I just add the only thing and only unique thing in that page. That's it. So we're actually done with the index.html. I'm gonna close that. Then we're gonna go to the menu. So the menu only has the food section. So I'm gonna copy that. Remember that div hero area, it's common, all of them, it's already there. The footer up and the scripts are already there. So the only thing that's missing is this. So I'm gonna select that middle section and then copy or control C and then right click and then paste or just type control V. So I'm gonna paste and then obviously this btn box again, there it is. I don't want it. I can check where the div ends by just highlighting or just being, let me see. Yeah. So by just clicking, just tapping there, it should select where the closing div is so that I know where to stop when I delete this thing. And then select all, Control A, and then align everything, Control K, Control F. So there's a lot going on here. So what I'll do is I'll minimize that. Okay, this is every product, right, available. Yeah, that's every product available. It's gonna be, yeah, this is a very nasty template. Like, yeah, this is because remember we need to dynamically populate these products. This is gonna be a nasty thing especially when it comes to converting. That's fine, but I'm just gonna minimize that. When it comes to dynamically populating, I mean, it's gonna be a very long code for the backend, for the server side, right? So, okay. So we have our page here. Sorry about that. I was just checking something. So we have our page here. So there's the home page. That's fine. So we added the menu page. So if I now click here, you should find menu.aspx. So I'm going to click there. So there's our menu. And remember, I removed that btn box, that button at the bottom, because I don't need it. So there's our menu. And it's working as intended, right? And then we're going to have about resource, what cannot be found because we don't have the about page. Same applies to the book table. We don't book page. We don't have the book page, right? And remember, I said we need to remove these two things. I keep forgetting. So we can remove this icon here because I feel like it's confusing for person who's not advanced. This is for advanced users. How would they know that they need to click there to log in? There needs to be a menu at the top to make it simpler. So I'm gonna remove this icon, but the cut I'll just leave it there. Then we're gonna need the search icon, right? So delete the search icon, delete this thing. How do we find that? I just right click there at the top and says inspect. So this has to deal with the head, right? If you remember. So there's the head. Mm, okay, so I want to be able to see which item am I selecting. Okay. So it's under the header section, right? And after the button, after we see a button, there should be a div after the button, which is this. That is an unordered list. The first unordered list is that menu, right? That the ones we added. And then we want this one, the user options. That's the one that we want. And then we should have that href user, then that online href. We don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. And then this div form, what. So yeah, I can't have a clue of where it is. So I'm gonna go to my my master page. And remember, it's in the header section, and the header section is in the master page. So that's how I knew where to go. I'm gonna scroll down. We said after the button, right? There's the button. We're gonna have this first div here, and then we're gonna have the second one where we have this Is it, what option is this? Yeah, these are the user options, right? Where we have the cart and thing. So this is before the cart, so that's going to be that icon there, that human icon thingy. And then I'm gonna scroll down. So that's everything, like everything that's there represents the cart. I'm gonna leave that as is. And then the href order online, I don't want that order online thingy. Is it, what is this one? Is it, what button is that? Okay, let me delete that and see if we did delete the right things. We shouldn't see a button there and that human icon. Yeah, perfect. So they are gone, but then I still need to remove the search bar, right? So I'm gonna select it and right click and see what is it actually called. Yeah, it's the button. Okay. So this button thing that I was not understanding, that's that search bar. So I'm gonna remove that. So I've removed that. I'm just gonna be left with the card. We're not gonna implement it now, but then at least just to make my page look pretty. Remember, we're gonna have many things there, like many pages that are there, like your how does this, your login and register, they're gonna be there. So let's add this. So now let's try to create the login and register pages, right? So I'm gonna add those options there. You see, I need to find that option, those list items, right? Of which are they already here. So each list item, they are. Each list item is like this, right? It's comprised of that. So I'm just gonna do code reuse, copy and paste, then change the name. So this will redirect to register.aspx and it's called register so that the user knows that they need to register. So I'm gonna give it a proper name, register. And then this will redirect you to log in. We're also gonna have log out, right? But then log out is usually gonna be an empty page. So log out, right? So log out, it's fine. We'll do log out later because I don't want to, because I would have to also hide it. Remember, the log out should only be shown when you've logged in. So I'm gonna click Google Chrome here. I'm gonna click to run with Google Chrome. Then it's gonna load. So there they are. There's my pages, right? Yeah, I don't have to worry about the aesthetics, right? How pretty it looks. You don't have to worry about that. As long as when you click there, it does something. Obviously, we don't have the register and the login, so we need to create that. So what are we going to use to create the login and register? Actually, I don't think I'm going to need the bucket table. Okay, I was not done with the HTML. There's about, yeah, I'm not done with the HTML. I don't know why did I rush. So I don't have about and yeah, I don't have about in the other one when book. So I'm gonna say add, right? And then web form with master page. I'm gonna call it about, then okay. And then actually, I'm opening code blocks. And then this will be about. I'm gonna select this, then minimize menu. We already have menu. I'm gonna delete menu. And then here, this is about, right? So the section, that's the part that I need. Select all, Control K, Control F to align. So there we go. We have the about section. So now if I run this, I should be able to see the about page. So about, so there's the about page. Obviously, this page needs to show, we're gonna remove the button and stuff. It needs to be able to show things like the price, the description and stuff, right? And the image that you've clicked. So for example, if I click on this image here, right, I should be able to click on the image or the name. So usually when I click on the image, Click on that, and then it should redirect to more information about that product or about that meal, right? And then book a table, we don't have book a table. So let me think about book a table. I don't think we'll need a book a table. We'll use the code to be able to create our register page, but we won't book a table. So, if you don't have things like register page and login page, right, you reuse one of the pages. So which pages has a form? One of the pages that has a form is the book a table page or inputs. You can say inputs if you want. So there's the book.html. Copy the section there, and then I'll be done with converting, right? So it has that form, and remember we need to change it to a div. Copy, Control K, Control F, right? And then this Google Maps thing you'll see that it's that div on the right panel. I'm not gonna need that, right? You can leave it if you want, but then I don't think it makes sense to have it. So there's the register page, right? Obviously, we're gonna change a few things. I don't think I'm gonna need the Google Maps. I mean, what's the point of having it there? So I'm gonna delete this. This is its own div. If you can't find it, you can just go or hover the thing that you want to view, right click. Come on. Okay. This one is refusing to right click since it's a Google map. So I'm just gonna go back here, and then this is the div. How do I find it? Because I see it's written Google Maps, so I know it's this div. Then I delete that div, and then I run it again. So there's a lot of changes you make to your HTML when converting to ASP. And we're gonna remove this bucket table option. We won't need it. So you see, there's our thing. And I'm not sure if we will be able to, we'll see. I'm not sure if we will be able to center this thing. We'll see. The thing is, centering a div is one of the most even experienced programmers. That's the question that they ask. They always try to. That's the question that they always ask on Google, right? How to center div, how to do that. Okay, let me try something here. So div class column. Okay, so the class is row. Let's try to see if we can make it happen. Remember the name is no longer bucket table, it's register because it's a register page. And then the class is row. And then the main div is container, right? So I'm gonna search container in my styles.css. Hopefully it works. Hopefully I find it. Or I can just change this. I think it could be this color mid what MD, let me say 5. Is it like a name or something? Let me see. Is it like a way of aligning, or it's something that they've created to make their oh, okay, so this just says how long the inputs would be, right? So I'm gonna go back. So I think I need row, but then that row is within the div. It was within the container div or the div with the container label. So 6, that means that's how long it's going to be. But then I need to shift it also to this side, right? So I could just leave it. If I fail to find this thing, I'm just gonna leave it, champ. I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm just gonna leave it. So I know the div that contains all of these divs, right? It has a class, it's part of the class container. And this section itself, so I think the main important thing is the section. The section is book section layout padding, right? So I'm gonna copy this. So let's see if we can try to figure something out. So CSS style.css, and then here I'm gonna press Control F to search, right? And then Control V to paste that book section, right? And then you can just press the up arrow to move to go to the lines with that exact same set of words that I'm looking for. So contain its book section, what? Layout padding. If I can't find book section layout padding, I'll just search layout padding on its own. Book section. Let me see. Okay, so there's nothing that's there. So layout padding. Okay, so there's the layout padding. Thing is, I don't know how to. I'm not CSS and HTML are not my strong suits. But then let's play around with these values. Let me make this 8. Let me just make it 50 so that I can see a huge difference. We're just gonna play around with that until it has been like aligned. The thing is, I'm not sure. Did it even change anything? I'm seeing pretty much the same thing. Or maybe the second value that represents. Let me change this to a 2, maybe. Maybe it represents the position or the column or something like that. Or it just represents the spaces at the top. Yeah, you see the spaces at the top. So I see now that's what that represents. So we're gonna change it back, and then okay, 50, right? Let me try to use negative values and see if that's gonna try to shift it to the right. Yeah, it was just playing around with this thing. If you finally figure out how to move it, then you'll be good to go. Why is it still zeros? Or maybe it's the PX. This thing is weird. So let me try doing this. Let me change this to it. Can't I set it to center? Isn't there something like center? There is, just that I don't know how to do that. Not working as intended. Oh, there's padding top, padding bottom. Let me see if I can use maybe something like padding block and um padding to the right, padding to the top. Okay, let me try to pad it or move it to the right, by 20 pixels. Let me try to move it to the right by 20 pixels. Basically, shift it to the right a bit by 20 pixels. Let me see if that's working. Seems like they didn't do anything though. They didn't even do anything. Okay, let's use and let's use a very big number so that I can see where it's actually changing. Yeah, this thing you have to play around with it until you figure it out. But then if you know the HTML, then yeah. So basically, see, it's doing the wrong thing. Oh, the padding on the right. Oh, it's okay. It's this space. You see the space on the right. So the more space, the bigger the number. Therefore, the more it's going to it's basically add space to the right. Now I see. So I want add space to the left, right, and then make that 100. Yeah, at least now I figured it out. Yeah, it's all about trial and error if you can't figure it out. You see to the left. So I need to add more space to the left. So let me say That was 1,000. That was pretty big. Let me say 400. Let's see if that's going to be big enough to move it to that side. Until it's at the center, we're gonna use different measurements. Exactly, yeah. You see, it has moved. At least I finally figured it out. So as you can see, okay, these spaces at the bottom, they're actually a little bit, the top and the bottom, the spaces are too big, but then it's fine. So I need to shift it, put padding it on the left a bit, to shift it to the right. So let me make this 500 instead. I think 500 should be perfect. So register, a little bit too off. 450 then. Yeah, there we go. Is it really centered? Hmm. My eyes could be deceiving me, but it seems like it's not really centered, but then it's fine. Somewhere to the center. So this top and the bottom, like I said, it was a little bit too big. So that means I must change this to like a 50 and see. So you see, that's how you can center things if, yeah, yeah, you see the space is a bit smaller now. That's reasonable. It shouldn't be like too big of a space there. So now we need to change the things that we're getting from the register page, right? Because it depends on the problem that we are solving, right? Remember, all it did was just copy and paste. So let's see the things that we want to ask from the user. I want to ask the user to enter their name. So I'm going to change the placeholder. The placeholder is the text that will be there displayed as a placeholder. So that it shows the user knows what to enter. So here it's going to be, I'm just going to say enter. I feel like when you prefix with enter, it's more clear on what the user should do. And then I'm going to add more divs, more inputs basically. So I'll ask the user for their name, right? So I'll just make it simple. I'll ask for their first name and last name. Enter your first name, and then here enter your last name, then phone number. Remember, there's food here, just in case we need to deliver. The driver, if we had drivers in this application, the driver will use that person's phone number, or just for future reference, right? And then I'm gonna need passwords, right? Two password inputs, right? Because we need to ask the user to enter their password, and then after entering their password, they need to confirm their password, right? So confirm password. But then remember, this input is a I need to change its type. So what type? So you can view it as sort of like a data type. What data type are you expecting here? I'm expecting a password, right? And if you see, if you change the type to password, even when you start typing, it hides the information. Then here, lucky enough, I have a select, right? If I didn't have it, I have to create it myself. So I need a select, and then the select should ask the question is, um, the question that the select should ask is, we can remove the options, right? But then in this set, I'm just going to work with what I have. I'm just going to say this select case is going to ask this question, are you a customer or manager? Gonna ask, are you a customer or manager? And then we're gonna have two options, right? So I'm going to remove, since we're gonna have two options, I'm gonna remove this so that I'm left with two options. So we're gonna have two options. The value, right, is basically what the value will be stored as. So for me, in my project, in my table, right, in my database, so the database for our user table, right, for the user table, I will store their first name as a string, then store their last name as a string. But then remember, strings in terms of databases, we use varchar, and then you pass the length of the string within that varchar, right? So that's what you're gonna use for the table when you're declaring it in the database tables, right? And then email is also going to be a string, which is a varchar, and then password is going to be a string, which is a varchar again. Okay, that's fine. So we also need to store if the user is active or not. If it's the user is active, I'm gonna use a 1. If they're not active, I'm gonna use a 2, a 0, I mean. So therefore, this would be an integer, right? Even in the database, it's called an int. So that's pretty straightforward. And then the role or what type of user, you can say role or type of user, right? Just to show you that you don't have to always copy everything that's being done in class. I'm going to change this to type. So type, this would be let me see, I'll use char. So I'll use a character. So C would stand for customer, and then M will stand for manager. And I'm going to use uppercase letters, right? Uppercase. You could use small letters. It's up to you. It's generally up to you in how you structure these things. So C would be for that's the value. So if the by value it means if this user chooses this option, that's what it means. It means if the user chooses this option here, the value that we're gonna get is going to be C. If the user chooses this option, the value that we're gonna get back is M. So we need to give it a proper label. I'm gonna say it's customer. That's what should be displayed. And then here should be display manager. And then I'm going to run my home.spx. Then I'm gonna go to register. You should see that now the register page is a bit different. You see, it's gonna ask, are you a customer or a manager? And then you select, and then you say you're a customer, right? Okay, this date, we need to remove it, right? Yeah, there's quite a lot of inputs, but then it's fine. We need to remove also book table. So we need to remove two things, this date or this calendar thing and the book table list item. So the date is this one. And then whenever we have buttons, right, you must always replace them with asp.x buttons. That's just how it is. It needs you to make use of asp.x. So I'm gonna search btn box inside my CSS. I'll search that. And then what do I need now? Is that option, right? The book table option. It needs to be remove. So remove the book table option. And then run our website. Remember, still haven't created the database. The database is pretty straightforward though. We'll see when you get there. You see, there it is. But then I also need to have a label here, right? To say whether everything went well or what is wrong if something goes wrong. So I'm gonna put in what I call an ASP.NET label. Think of it in terms of informatics, right? Remember how we put labels. You just go to your toolbox and then you search the label. It's so basically informatics 2B is like a combination of two modules, informatics and comsci. So there it is, there's the label. You just drag and drop it. That's it. I'm gonna give it a name. I'm gonna call it LBL response, which is basically the response that will be sent to the user. So if I leave it with this text label, it's gonna be a problem. I don't want it with text. I want it empty. So let me show you what happens. And pay attention where I've put the label. It's just before the button. So if I go to register, and then you see it shows label. I don't want it to show label. So I don't want it to show that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it empty. So the text should be empty. The text should be empty. And then run it server means I should be able to run it on the server side. Basically, behind this, when I write C# code, I can run it, I can reference, I can call this label and actually put text into it. So that's what the run it server does. It helps us do that. So this button, like I said, buttons should be replaced with ASP.NET buttons. So and it shouldn't be book. It shouldn't be book now. It should be register. So I'm going to delete this button and then go to my toolbox, just like you did in Informatics 1A and 1B. I'm going to search for button. Choose the normal button. You don't want an image button. I'm not going to have a button with an image here. I'm not going to have all those things. So BTN, I'm going to call it, give it the ID BTN register. And then the text is what is going to be displayed when you see the button. I want it to show the user register to so that they know that they should register. And then it might not style. That's the problem with converting to ASP.NET. Sometimes it might not style. So it's a bit tricky. You need to take other measures to style your buttons. You see, we have that issue there. And there's something that I want to do. I want to add the space here, right? There should be a space there. I don't know why it doesn't want to style. So let's try this then. So I'm gonna extract that class and then put it here. Let's try that. And then let's see if it does style, but I don't think it's gonna style. Yeah. So since it doesn't style, we need to go to our CSS. You don't have, remember, you don't have to. As long as your application is working, you don't have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna search for, what is it called? BTN box, right? Control F so that I can open the search bar. BTN underscore box. Why can't I see it here? Isn't it BTN box? Yeah, there it is. It is BTN box. Okay, so let me just look at all the buttons and see. Or or maybe this is, let me put the hyphen instead. Maybe the code did an error there. So let me put that hyphen to just fix that error. If there was an error, let's see. Okay, it's still not the case. So I'm just gonna leave it as that. BTN box, justify, blah, blah, blah. I don't see colors here, so I don't think that's the one. Food section. What is the food section? Let me run it again. I just want to see the food section, the menu section, basically. Where's the button here? Oh, yeah. You see, that's the thing. You see that padding that we added for the register page, right? This register page, it affected our menu. It affected, you see how the menu looks. So what I need to do is I need to go back there and actually create a different label or a different class. How do we do that? So okay, this will just go back there. So let's see. What was our class again? Layout padding, right? So I don't want it to use layout padding. So I want to use a different one, right? So I'm gonna say Control F, right? Layout underscore padding, right? So this layout padding, yeah, it should be applied only to, so I'm just gonna copy this, right, and put it and put it inside layout and you create a different label, right? Or is it an ID? No, it's not an ID. A different class, right? Create a different class to represent that. I'll call it layout Um, let me see if it can. Okay, you won't find it yet because I haven't defined it. So let's change this to layout button. BTN, layout BTN. Let's call it layout BTN. And then here I'm gonna say dot layout BTN. Okay, it's not appearing again. That's fine. And then I'm just gonna copy this, put it here, and then leave this one as it was before, which was 90 there, and then this wasn't there. Come on. This line wasn't, come on. So this line wasn't there. It was like this before. Then we just create a different class so that we work with that. So let me see if that actually changed the things the way I wanted to change. Yeah, with SP and HTML, yeah, there's a lot of playing around. Okay, it's still at the center. Let's see the menu now. Perfect. So the menu is still the way it is. So sometimes you might need to create your own classes, right? Or your own thing so that you can separate and not, so it doesn't affect every single thing like that used that class. So we have our register page. There's the, so like here, like I said, we need to add that space, right? As long as the button is working, right? You don't have to worry about the styling not working. So where's BTN box? I can't find it. Where is it? Is it in the other style sheets? Let me see. BTN box. Okay, so let me search BTN score box. It's also not inside the style sheet. Style, yeah, inside the style sheet it's also not there. And then let's choose a different one, the responsive. Let's see if it's in this one, BTN underscore. It's also not in this. So where does this person get the styling sheet for that? Okay, but that's fine. Let me choose a different button. Let me see a different class, I mean. Okay, this is the hero area, right? Class BG box. Mm, okay, I only want the buttons. It was picking up the buttons. Now it's no longer picking up the buttons. What is wrong with this thing? Let me just look for a sec. Where's this? Why is it refusing to style this button though? Dot box, blah blah blah. Food section BTN box. What section is this? Book section, right? So mm, I think I might need the styling for that thing. Let me see. Let me try something. Dot BTN box, right? And then let me just copy this and see if that's gonna work. Not sure if it's going to work, but then it's worth a try. And then just see if that works. Oh, okay. I need to change that to BTN box with a hyphen though. Or I can just use the okay, BTN. Is it BTN box? Um Not BTN box. Which one? Yeah, it's an underscore. It's fine though, I can just change this to that. I'm not sure if I'm copying the right things here. I'm just going based on intuition. It might go really bad. Okay, but yeah, you see, did try, but then it's actually not making it's not making the button itself like that. So basic idea, I'm close. So I need to actually do this. So it's just applying it on the div or basically around it, around the button. I want it to be applied on the button. So that's why I'm putting the class right there where the button is. Can't believe I figured that out. Not HTML and CSS are not my strong suits. That's why I'm also surprised. So register, perfect. Yeah. So so you can play around with this thing like that. Okay. And if you want, you can also enlarge the button, right? That's up to you. If you can understand the style sheet, right? That's if you can understand. So you see, I'm not sure what the padding here. So but basically we're using the padding here. I don't know which one we need to increase. Is it the top or the bottom or right, left? I'm just not sure. I increase the 10 to 100. Let's see if that will change anything. Okay, so yeah, that's the top. You see, sometimes you need to test it out top. So maybe this is how wide it should be. Let me say 8. So maybe the second value is how wide it should be. Or you can just totally remove the padding. But then, oh yeah, perfect. So that's how wide it should be. So I just need to keep increasing that. So let me change that to 120. No, not 1.2, 120. So I'm going to change that to 120 and then register page. It's just a little bit more. Like I said, it's not a must for you to do this. You don't have to. I'm just doing it because I'm a perfectionist. I like my things to look perfect. I can spend more time trying to fix it to be perfect than actually implementing. That's just how I am. 120, 150, so let's say 180. So register, perfect. So there's the register page. So we need to add a bit of space here so that we can see the text, right, from the label. So I need to change that there, this top part. So we can do we can use what we call a line break. So I'm actually done with the CSS. I'll never touch it again from now on. So we put what is called a line break. You can think of it as like a new line in C++. It's like literally doing this, right? It's like putting that \n. And then before the select, okay, that's fine. Before the select, it doesn't really matter. So therefore, we are good to go, right? We are done with that. I think I can end the here. Okay, let me just make the table. So let's create the tables, right? So before we continue, I know this is how my user table will look, right? User table, that's the information I need. And then for my product, right? Remember, we need a table that represents the product. For the product, we can just double check. So let me close this. For the product, we can just double check by running, right? So I'm gonna run this, and then I'm gonna wait until I see the home page, or I just go to the about or menu. I mean menu. So what do we have? We have the image, which is going to be basically a string. How do I know? If you check the HTML itself, let me show you. So I need the menu.html, notepad, C++, right? If you check the nav, the products, right? So let me show you the products. So there they are, right? These are the products, right? If you check the products, Is it the product? Yeah. If you check the product, the image is what? Is inside double what? Quote, double quotes or double quotation marks. So that's how I know that it's going to be a string. So the image is going to be a string or a varchar in terms of database. And then the name of the product is also going to be a string. Then the price, to make things simple, right, for me, I avoid double. Don't use decimal because sometimes your computer's default settings is that a floating point is represented by a comma. Sometimes it's represented by a dot. It depends on your operating system settings. I don't want to go into those subtle details. I'll just make it an integer. And then the last thing is the description, which will be also a string. So we have our tables the tables that we need. So now we can create our tables. So I'm gonna create a service application first before I can do that. So I'm gonna open Visual Studio again so that I can create a different application, which is the service. So there we go. At least I'm getting a hang of the HTML side and the CSS. But then the main important thing is the ASP, the webs, the way the code part. That's the main part. Do your things connect? So this is going to be the web service, or I'm just gonna call it the service. Factor 0 P04 underscore service. Is that how I code the web site? Let me check on desktop. Yeah. So I'm just gonna use that naming convention P04. Now I'm creating a service. And then we wait. So I'll just end the session after creating the tables, and then we will just continue from there. So there's our service, right? By default, it's going to have information that we basically shows you how to implement. I'm going to delete those functions or those implementations, right? So it should be empty like this. And then I'm going to open the service1.svc. Where is it? Oh, it's this one. iservice1.cs. CS, it means stands for C sharp. And then I need to do this. Then scroll down there. There we go. Also, this I won't need it. So I'm just gonna remove that. It's empty for now. We'll create the functions, right? So the first thing that we need to do is create the database. We don't have any database at the moment. And I shouldn't forget to add my secrecy file to hash the passwords. Because remember, passwords shouldn't be stored in plain text. You should not store them in plain text. So there's the secrecy file. So I'm gonna right click and then copy the file or Control V, and then go to your service, right click there and then paste, or just put Control V, type Control V. Then you're gonna have the secrecy.cs or .c sharp. And then now I can right click and create the database. So right click, add my database, right? So he already for me it's there, right? SQL Server database. But since it might not be there for you, you just need to click on new item and then go to data. And then because we're dealing with data now, we are no longer on the code part, right? Like the website part. We're on the data end of or the service side. And then I'm gonna choose my SQL Server database, and then I'm gonna give it a name. I'll call it it's my practical 4 or P04 database underscore database. Make sure you use an underscore. Don't be putting things like hyphens. Hyphens might work, but then underscores are the safest. If you make a mistake in naming, that's why it's best to just leave it like that. But if you put a mistake in naming it, you might have to restart everything from scratch because your thing might not work because of the way you've named it, especially if you put spaces. So I need a SQL Server database so that I can store. Basically, database is my base for data, where all the data that I'll be getting from the user will be stored. And then once I've created, I should go to my server explorer and then expand data connections and then expand my database. There's the database that I've created, right? Expand tables. Right now, there's no tables because we haven't created any tables. Then I'm going to right click and then click add new table. And then you can just rename it there. So let's just wait for it to load properly. Listen properly. Listen properly. Reminds me of that meme. Okay, so now I need to this ID, right? Which is basically if you forgot, I suggest you revise your informatics 2A notes or just go through the practicals, the slides, just revise, look at the slides again. It's this is the primary key is basically how each thing will be uniquely identified, right? Just like your ID number, that it uniquely identifies you as a person because you might have the same name and surname and age, but then ID number is different. So that's what you're gonna use the primary key for here. So I'm gonna make it auto increment, basically increase on its own. I'm gonna put one as like the starting point. It starts at one, and then one is mean the next one. It means it should increase by one or increment by one. And then I'm gonna go here and start putting in the variables, the information that I need to store inside of my table. So let's start with the user table. So where you see table, you need to replace that the name of the table you want to create. I want to create mine called user, right? Starting with you want to start with the capital letter, right? So as you can see, even the ID starts with the capital letter. So even everything that I write here, the first letter of that information, right, should be of that thing that I want to store, it should be a capital letter. And then so there it is. I want to store first, last, email, password, active, type. So I can't just put it as last. I should give it a descriptive name. It should be first name. Remember, first letter is a capital letter. First name like this. And then that's going to be a voucher, right? For me, right, in terms of, sometimes, it's an error that you might not expect. When you're dealing with vouchers, right, remember that it gives you a limit. It tells you to put what's the maximum. It's like in a way you're creating an array. Basically creating a char array, right? A character array, which is basically a string. So we're creating a char array. So basically you need to pass the length of that string. How long do you want the string to be? In my case, I want to just use the maximum varchar I can store because some people have very long names. And then I'm gonna store last name. Yeah, just make my life easy, man. I don't want to think what's the maximum. Now I have to go to Google and search what's the maximum what is the longest first name and what is the longest last name ever recorded in the Guinness World Record. Now I have to do research like that, which is unnecessary. That's why I just use varchar max. And then email. Again, I'm going to use varchar max, making my life simple. I want an easy life. I don't want a stressful life. And then I don't want it to allow nulls, right? So I'm going to unselect that. Every time you add a new entry in your database, it automatically selects allow nulls. We don't want it to allow nulls because we shouldn't have null values. And then the next thing that I need to store is the password. Varchar again, making my life easy. I don't want problems. I want peace. I'm not like that person who was saying, I don't want peace. I want problems always. So we have active, which is whether the user is active or not. So I'm going to say that's active. And then it's up to you, right? You could say allow nulls for active and then set the default value to be 1. You can do that because by default, when the user registers, right, they're going to be active. And if they they deregister, right? They're going to be inactive. So you just change that value from 1 to a 0. And then what's the last thing? The role or the type. So I'm gonna call mine type. You don't have to follow what the lecturer is always telling you what to do. Just declare what you want. Remember, this should be a char. And with the character, right? With the character, in the character that you have here, it allows you to choose the maximum length. So I want the length to be 1 because remember it can be a C or an M. And then I don't want it to allow nulls. I'll put the information. It's required to put for you to put the information. And then that's pretty much my table. And then I'm going to click update to update my database, right? So that it takes into account these changes that I have created a new table. So my database is now aware that I've created a new table. After creating it, you might not see it. You must always right click on tables and then click refresh, and then you should see the table. So now I want to add a new table. And then, like I said, where you see table name, you need to change that to then your table name. So product. And then remember, I want it to auto increment. Identity started 1, increment by 1. Okay, nope. And then the product, like I said, you're gonna have an image, which is also gonna be a varchar mix. I don't want my life to be difficult. I don't want to think about the length of everything. And the name of the product and description and price. Varchar mix. And then description. And then varchar max again. I don't want to make my life difficult. And then price. Like I said, I want to make my life difficult. The price, I'll make it an integer. So let me look for int. You could use big int, but then we're not dealing with very big numbers, so I'm just gonna use an int. It's just a simple application. And I could, if I want to technical, I could say whether this product is active or inactive, but then it wouldn't make any sense for the product to be active or inactive. Basically, it's like, is it in stock or it's not? You could have something like that, like a boolean, right? Let me see. I think there should be a boolean here. So let me say in stock. You don't have to, right? I'm just thinking about it from the perspective of Woolworths, Pick and Pay, and ShopRite. Something can either be in stock or not in stock. So I can search here. Let me see. In stock, we need a boolean, right? I'm not sure if they have. I don't see it. So we need a clever way to represent that. Oh, you could also say this is an image. Save it as an image. I didn't know about that. You could do that. Small int SQL variant. Tiny int, I don't see boolean. Yeah, I don't see it. So we have to use integer. Maybe 1 is for, yeah, I'll just use an int. 1 means it's in stock, 0 means it's not in stock. So I'll just use int. And then it shouldn't be null. So it shouldn't allow null. So it cannot be null at any point in time. And then update my database so that it is aware that they exist, this table exists. And then I'm gonna right click on tables and then click refresh. There's the table. And then now, in order for me, remember we're doing a WCF service application, right? We want, basically what it means, we want to use C# to make changes to our database. So how do we connect to the database? Or how do we insert into the database without running SQL statements, right? Like saying insert into users, right? Like this, and then you say insert this, maybe it's hello, something like that. We don't want to be running SQL statements, right? We want to use C#. How do we go about doing that? We go about doing that by basically linking our SQL to classes, right? So there's this thing called link to SQL classes. So you link your SQL to a class. What it means is that the SQL table, it creates a class that is equivalent to that table. So I'll show you now. So let me give it a name. So I'm gonna click link to SQL classes, and then I'm gonna say practical for underscore data classes or data class. Let me say data class. That's how I'm gonna name mine, and then click add. So if you read this data class thing, it does explain. It says create data classes by dragging and dropping your databases, right, from Server Explorer, which is this is a Server Explorer. So you create a class by dragging and dropping. So basically, we want to treat them as objects. So our tables will be treated as objects. So user, drag and drop user. So when I drag and drop here, if you don't drag and drop, you can't treat them as objects. So now what it does, right? Well, after I've dragged and dropped, this is what it does. So remember I had the product table, right? It's called product. It also had the in stock, right? That was the last thing, which was an int. So basically this is what it does when you drag and drop here. This is very important. This process of dragging and dropping, right? Linking to SQL classes, it basically does this. It's like you're telling it to create a class, whatever table you've dragged. It looks at it's the table's name and the columns. Create a class called product. So when you drop the product table, that's what you're telling it. So now it's going to say class product like this, right? So I'm going to do the C++, declare it using the C++ language. So it's going to do this, and then by default, it makes everything public. And then what is image? It's going to check, or varchar. So varchar, that's a string. So it's going to say string image. And then name, it's going to say string name because the name is a varchar. Price is int, and um, it's also called a int in C++. So int price, and it's gonna name these variables exactly the same way you've named them inside of your table with even the capitalization. Okay, I capitalized the first letters, right? So I need to fix that. So because that's the format that the database uses, right? And then the description was what? A string again. So string, yeah, for those who are asking me the standard namespace, blah, blah, blah. Just imagine I said using namespace, but then I can also put it there. So this is standard string, right? And then description, because I capitalized the letter of the first letter of the word. And then the in stock is an integer, int in stock. So now it means that I can now treat the table as a class. You see, I can now treat it as a class. So that's what we're doing by dragging and dropping here. That's what we're doing. It's going to create a class for each table. So that now when we create our functions, we work, it's sort of like, it's like we're working with objects, right? Remember, you can create a function, let's say int get ID, that gets an ID, right? And it takes in a user. You see, if I say user, it knows what I mean. So this is a user object, right? But then this user object is actually user table. So basically, these tables are going to be treated as objects. So I think I should end the video here. We're going to continue in the next part. I'll send it a bit later during the day. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.